Hi, welcome to the AMC Online. And today we're talking about yoga. What is it and why should you do it? Throughout this video, you'll see a couple of different poses of me, pictures of me doing yoga poses in different places. So when I travel, that's one thing I always like to do is take a picture of myself doing a yoga pose. Next slide. So, note of caution with yoga and with any sport, any exercise, you should always talk to your doctor first. If you have pre existing conditions, if you are pregnant, like I am, if you have a previous injury, if there's anything about you that's slightly different, you want to make sure you exercise. So, I also want to say do not attempt to do any of the yoga moves, and I have done in these pictures unless you've warmed up or you've been doing yoga for a while. Just don't want to hurt yourself or pull a muscle trying to strike a pose. And don't do yoga on top of mountains because there have been people who have fallen to their death trying to do a complicated yoga pose on top of a mountain. Next slide. All right, so yoga in its basic sense is a form of exercise, like other things like ballet or Pilates. Yoga means union. It was started in India, and there are a lot of people who think yoga is a religion, but it's not a religion. It can be part of your religion. It can be part of your spiritual activity. Some people meditate. Some people do different things during that, but it's not a religion in itself. You don't have to be flexible to do yoga. You will gain flexibility if you practice yoga every day, but you don't have to be flexible. And you can do yoga anywhere. I think in most of these pictures, I don't even have a mat. So you would be able to do yoga anywhere. I prefer to do yoga on a mat, but technically you can just do yoga anywhere, especially when you're in your house or your apartment practicing social distancing. Next slide. All right. My first yoga teacher was my mom. My mom has been doing yoga since as long as I can remember. Before it was a big deal or a big thing, she did yoga, and anybody can do yoga at any time, at any age. And here's a picture of my mom and I doing the dancer's pose in Germany, and it just reminds me that my mom is 71, but she is probably in better shape than a lot of people in their 20s because she does yoga every day still, and if we all start working on our bodies and keeping our spines healthy and strengthen our core, then we can also do yoga for the rest of our lives. Next slide, please. All right, so there's lots of types of yoga. And I'm not going to talk about all these types of yoga because you're not going to hear about it unless you plan on studying yoga like as a scholar. I mean, there's types of yoga which don't involve exercise, which involve doing mantras or involve taking care of animals or helping people and believing that what happens to you or what you do comes back to you in the future. The type of yoga that we're mostly going to focus on today is Hatha yoga. Ha means sun, Tha means moon. So together it's the sun and moon yoga. It's mostly the exercise of yoga. Next slide. Okay, so within Hatha yoga, you have several types of yoga. You have vinyasa, which is one of my favorite types of yoga. It is the yoga where you flow from one movement to the next. So you don't hold your exercise or your pose, you move from one thing to the next. For example, just one second. Okay, I'm back. All right, so vinyasa is a flowing yoga, and so you usually do one movement per breath. So you take it in a deep breath and you do a movement, then you breathe out and you do a movement, and you breathe in, you do a movement, and you are moving, breathing, acting the whole entire time. Then there's Ashtanga yoga, it's which you hold the poses longer. So in this form of yoga, it's very intense. It is like uh, strength training. Is if you were in the gym lifting weights, you will hold your like push-up position. You'll hold your chaturanga for a long time. You will do a squat for a long time. And this is I sometimes do this form of yoga, like for a few minutes just to kind of wake myself up, but it's not something I personally enjoy with a passion because it is hard. The next kind is Iyengar. This kind of yoga uses props. Usually, if you're going into a Iyengar class, you're gonna see straps, which will help your body move and twist. You're gonna see props like blocks to help yourself and reach a certain pose you couldn't without the block. And you're not going to see Iyengar by itself. And it involves lots of different parts of yoga, but the main thing you're going to notice with Iyengar is different is props. Kundalini yoga has a lot of breathing, chanting, and meditation. So sometimes people do combine different types of yoga. I've been in a vinyasa class where in the beginning the instructor will have you practice breathing and doing something called a fire breath and panting and releasing like toxins through breathing. But that's definitely something you do in the Kundalini yoga. You don't do that normally in other kinds of yoga for the entire time you're doing the yoga exercise. Then you have Bikram, which started in the US, and Bikram is a yoga you do in a hot and humid room. And I did it once, and once I would do it again if I lived somewhere where a Bikram studio was next door. But I'm not going to go out of my way to get to a Bikram class because I didn't really feel super comfortable doing Bikram. Some people love it. They love doing yoga in a hot, like sauna. They love sweating. They feel afterwards they've released all these toxins and they stretch their body. Personally, I felt like when I did it, it was weird, and I have strong sense of smell. And there were like 40 people in a hot room, and we were all doing yoga, and I didn't really like it. I felt like even though I was on my mat by myself, I just felt like everybody's sweat was touching me. It just felt weird. But I say that to tell you what I like. People love Bikram. I have friends that go to Bikram every day. Like they feel like when they walk out of a Bikram studio that they have like they're reborn. Like they sweated everything out and they stretched their bodies. They did yoga and it's just amazing. So try Bikram at least once. And if you like it, keep going. And then you have like a restorative yin type of yoga. And this yoga is really dedicated to a certain part of your body, your spirit, your mind, something that might have happened to you, like an accident. I was in a car accident once, and instead of taking like lots of pain medication, I took a restorative back class and neck, and it actually helped me a lot because I felt like my spine realigned itself and things changed just from doing that yoga class. And it was a very slow class, and it wasn't intense. I wasn't doing movements like I'm exercising. It wasn't like vinyasa or ashtanga, but it was very specific to my back and my spine. And I went to a specific yoga teacher to do that. And I had a one-on-one class. And I think, and my insurance paid for it. So like it was as if I went to the doctor. And I did that instead of taking medicine. So some people really like restorative yoga. Next slide. So what's going to happen in your yoga class? So usually you walk into a yoga class for the first time, you're going to have a teacher or a yogi. I really love it when there's two teachers. That's not common, but when there's two teachers, I feel like there's one you can watch and one that walks around the class and adjusts you. And adjusting is when you're in a pose and the teacher says, actually, shoulders back or down or turn your core, do this or do that. And it's helpful. It's hard for a teacher to do that when he or she is in the front of the class and you're in the back. So some places have two teachers, one who teaches and one who rotates around the class and demonstrates things for you. You will also have usually mats and props. So usually you have yoga mats provided for you in a class. I've been to, in some cities, they don't provide the mat unless you pay extra. So you bring your own mat, but if you are traveling and you don't have a mat, then you just use their mat and you either pay extra. Other places, the mats are free. Usually in some classes, you have props like a blanket because in the beginning of yoga and the end of yoga, you like to be warm. So I like to put blankets over myself, especially during Shavasana, which I'll explain what that is later. And then blocks and straps help you get into moves and help your body reach things that you need a little help with. And it makes it safer and easier for you. Sanskrit, that is really within in India, one of the languages that you can use yoga words are usually in Sanskrit. So most time, your first class, you go to a yoga studio, they don't use Sanskrit for the whole class. I have been in classes where they use Sanskrit the entire class. And if you don't know the Sanskrit word, you may be confused. A lot of times they use English in the US or Russian in Russia, and only some words are Sanskrit, like chaturanga is a push-up in yoga, and that is Sanskrit for push-up. So chaturanga is usually something they'll say, and shavasana is your last exercise, and that's in Sanskrit. But a lot of people don't do the entire 1 hour or 90-minute class in Sanskrit. You also have pranayama, which is breath control. Sometimes in some classes you have that, other classes you don't. And then in meditation, there's a lot of classes where you meditate at the end of the class, and the meditation could just be a deep breath in and a breath out and close your eyes. Or it could be chanting and repeating things. I've been in classes where people have beads on their neck and they do something different for every bead. It just depends on how far your class is going to take it in meditation. And I put asterisks beside things that aren't normal in your first time beginner yoga class. Next slide. Okay, so in your class, what are the parts of a yoga class? Usually we start in seated meditation. Usually a teacher will start sitting down and you will be sitting down and you'll take deep breaths in and you'll have close your eyes and you'll visualize the room. A lot of times they'll tell you to forget your worries. Don't think about what you have to do. Just focus on yoga. So in that moment, you are meditating and you are using yoga to kind of like mind and breath to relax and to be in the moment. Then you have a warm up or sun salutations. Usually you're standing and you go through certain moves where you stand and breathe and you move your body from standing to seated back up to standing. So you're starting at the top of the mat and then you'll take a deep breath in and then everyone will go down to their toes and then eventually you're in a push-up position or knees on the floor position. You move into something called downward dog and upward dog and you stand back up again. So that's a sun salutation. If we have time, I'll show you that. You also have standing poses, which help you with your balance. Um, Standing poses are great, and they're also good when you're in situations where you can't lay on the floor, like when you're doing yoga on an airplane or you're doing yoga in a tiny, confined space. Sometimes you can do like all your yoga exercise just standing. Then you have seated poses, which sometimes come after standing or before, and those can work on your flexibility. They can work on balance and coordination on the floor. You have inversions, which is when your body is inverted. So you're doing handstands or headstands or elbow stands. When I say a headstand, I mean your weight is all on your head. You're upside down and you're on your head. Or your hands. Your weight is all in your hands and you're upside down. Or your elbows for elbow stand and your weight is on your elbows and you're upside down. So all that happens in inversions. And then you also have twists, which are for detoxing your body. Twists can take place seated, standing, inversions. They're all kind of twists. And then the last thing you do in most yoga classes is shavasana, which is a rest pose. And I think a lot of people in the beginning find this pose to be weird. Shavasana is also called dead man or corpse pose. And it can feel weird because you're just kind of laying on the floor. And I know people who've told me they've fallen asleep in shavasana, but it's kind of the hardest pose to do in yoga because you really have to focus on calming your entire body and relaxing. And I have noticed that if I do yoga and I don't do shavasana, I feel some pain sometimes, so tweaks in certain part of my body. Maybe I did a lot of inversions or twists, and then if I don't do shavasana, I don't know. I can't explain it, but your body doesn't calm down. So you have to finish with shavasana, that time where you just lay on the floor flat like a dead person and you wait for several minutes or, long time, depending on how long you have, and then you finish yoga. Next slide. All right, so since most of us are in our house and we can't get out to a yoga studio, I put down some of my favorite yoga teachers. These people all have websites on YouTube, and all of them have free classes. Sometimes teachers will ask you to join them and do a special class or join them for like they send emails every day or they do special workouts with certain people, but they all have free classes. So you can start with a free class. And if you really love somebody and you want to support them, it's not a bad idea to support them financially, but you can also just take the free class. So Alo Yoga has several teachers, but for the rest of them, they're like one person who teaches a class, and they have online sites, and you can go on their websites, you can go on their YouTube page, and you can find them and take their class. And some of them have 15-minute yoga or 30-minute yoga or 90-minute yoga or yoga for your hips or yoga for your legs or yoga for your back. So just go to their websites and you can find the classes you want. All right, so that is my presentation on yoga, on the different aspects of yoga, why you should do yoga. I mean, there's several benefits. Yoga increases your longevity. It makes you have better posture. It keeps you, I feel, based on people I've seen alive younger, you can just Google yoga miracle and you'll find a person who was in a car accident or, somehow had spinal cord injuries and was told they'll never walk again. And yet they did yoga and then they could walk again. Or, You'll find someone who lost a lot of weight or became healthy in some other way or changed their life in some way, all through yoga. And in the end of the day, do what you love. Practice yoga if that's something you love. Drink a lot of water, stay safe, wash your hands, and rest and relax. And I would be happy to take questions if there are questions at this time. If there are not questions, I will try to do some yoga. We can take a pause. Everyone go and get your mats, get some water, and meet me on the floor. Are there any poses? Are there any poses that pregnant women shouldn't do? Well, first of all, if you've never done yoga before and now you're pregnant, you shouldn't start doing yoga. I mean, that's just my personal opinion, unless your doctor says you can do it. You pregnant women can do yoga throughout their entire pregnancy, but yoga, unless you should go to a prenatal yoga teacher. But as far as practicing at home, if you've never practiced yoga before, you probably should start practicing it at home by yourself. If you can, go to a prenatal yoga teacher and go to that teacher. You can practice yoga as a pregnant person. In the first trimester, there are a couple of poses that we're supposed to avoid like inversions. And actually, through your whole pregnancy, you probably don't want to do a handstand or an elbow stand. I can't lay on my stomach anymore. I really don't lay on my back anymore. So if you are doing yoga, you probably can tell if you're pregnant what you can and can't do. One of the things that you might want to not do is lay on your back or your stomach. Like Shavasana, I do on my side. So first, I would start with talking to your doctor. Ask your doctor if it's okay for you to do yoga. Most pregnant women can do it. Some of us, if you're pregnant, you have certain conditions like preeclampsia or your uterus is in a certain position where you shouldn't do yoga. But for the most part, you can do yoga when you're pregnant. All right, so I'm going to try to do some yoga poses. I'm hoping that the camera works and you can see me fine. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to start off like most yoga classes. You start in your seated position and take a deep breath. And I'm going to breathe out and turn to my right. And then I'm going to take a deep breath in and turn to my left. Now I'm back in the middle, again, taking that deep breath in, and I'm going to go to the right side. And then deep breath in the middle, and go to the left side. So now I'm going to go to what's called a cat-cow position, where you're on your hands and knees. I'm just going to take some deep breaths and kind of warm my spine up. So I'm going to breathe in, and then I'm going to breathe out. And of course, because I'm pregnant, this looks a little different than it would if I wasn't pregnant. And going to standing on my mat, coming to the front of my mat. I'm going to stay, this is mountain pose, where you stand at the top of your mat. If I was not pregnant, my sun salutations would include doing a push-up, laying flat on my stomach, and doing Sphinx pose or Cobra pose or upward dog. None of that I'm going to do today, but I'll show you a modified sun salutation that everyone should be able to do, pregnant or not pregnant. So deep breath in, and then I'm going to swan dive forward. Your hands don't have to touch the ground. If you have a block, you can put your hands on blocks. Deep breath in, and then I'm going to step back into that hands and knees position, and then I'm going to go into what's called downward dog. And then I'm going to take my right foot forward, pivot my back foot, and come up. Okay? This is warrior one. And then I'm going to move into warrior two. So with vinyasa, you take a movement and you take a breath and do a movement. So now I'm in warrior two. Deep breath in. And then I'm going to breathe out. And the side angle stretch. And back into warrior two. And then I'm going to go back to the floor
And do that on the other side. I'm in a plank. I'm going back on my knees because I'm pregnant. If you're not pregnant, from the plank, you can bend your arms and come down into a chaturanga. I'm going to go into downward dog again. Step forward with my left foot. And now I'm up in warrior one again. And I'm going to go into warrior two. And I'm going to leap up and then over. And then I'm going to pivot back down to the ground into my plank. Again, my knees are down. And then I'm going to come back into a downward dog. Okay. I'm going to step forward. Take a deep breath in and out. And then back up to the start of my mat. So that was a basic sun salutation. You could also add a movement in the beginning of sun salutation where you kind of do a squat. Sometimes that's added into your sun salutation. That's usually sun salutation B. Now we'll move on to some standing poses. The first one that we'll do is a tree pose, which is something you'll see in yoga class, a very simple pose. You're going to start just here. You bring your foot to the instep of your leg. So that is your basic tree pose. The higher you bring your leg, the harder it is. And so if you're trying it for the first time, you might want to have a chair beside you. So I'm going to grab my foot and bring it up to the middle. All right? And then I'm going to put my hands in prayer position. And I'm going to try it one more time. Again, like yoga's tricky because like sometimes you have super balance, other times you don't. But of course I have this action going on here, which makes it harder to balance. So then I'll bring my right foot down. So I'm going to try now my left foot. Put the weight into my right side. Again, the first time you're trying it, you can just do a tree pose like this. If you've tried tree pose before or you're pretty confident, you've got the balance, you can take your left foot in your hands and put it in between your top of your thigh and your knee. And you can take this pose and put your hands up above your head. You can put your hands behind your back in different clasps and keep it here, okay? You can do that several times. And then for most time with yoga, you're going to do a reverse of your first pose. So the reverse pose of tree pose is eagle pose, where I'm going to take my right foot, try to wrap it around my left foot. Normally, I can wrap it around several times, but I'm not going to my body isn't doing that right now. So, and then I'm just going to do this, okay? Then I'm going to try that on the left side. Take my left foot. The intention is to wrap it around my foot, but it's just beside it for today. I'll do a yoga class when I'm not pregnant. All right, and back to the top. Let's do some seated poses. So come back down to the mat with me on the floor. Normally, you can do different type of toe touches in this. My belly is in the way a little bit. So I'm going to take a block, put it in the middle of my legs, and try to reach forward to the top of my toes. You can go down flat, then you don't need the block. And if you can also put the block behind your feet to help you. And if you have a strap, you can put the strap around your feet and hold the strap. So a strap can also be a belt or a tie or anything. Another position you can do for seated is you can bend one knee and then move forward. Again, the idea is not to force your head down, but to get your chest onto your leg. You want your chest, your stomach onto your leg. And if your head goes down, that's great. If it doesn't, you just keep working at it every day. You get closer to having your head go down. And everything you do on the right side, you must do on the left side. And then we can also do, this pose is just very common in yoga. You'll see this a lot in yoga classes and ballet classes. Again, our idea is to get our body towards the ground, but not to force our head to our toes. And you can use a block. If you can't get your head down to the floor, normally I can, but that's not happening at this point in my life. I won't be able to show you any inversions like headstands or shoulder stands, but you can look those up online. You can also do several different types of twists. I'll show one of my favorite twists, seated again. is I will put my leg here and then I'll just bring it across. Okay? And then I'll take my right hand over my left leg and just turn. Same thing on the other side. I'll take my right leg on my left leg and then pivot it down, take my left hand up, and then hold my leg and then turn. And I feel a nice twist and stretch in both hips when I do this. And then when you're finished yoga, you'll do shavasana. You're laying flat on the ground. Take your blanket if you have it, and you'll put the blanket across you and lay flat on the ground. If you are pregnant, lay on your left side. I hope you've learned a little bit about yoga today, and if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them at this time. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for kind of joining me today. I'm not a professional yoga teacher, and I just love yoga, and I wanted to share that with you. I'd be happy to do a class in the future with the proper equipment, and maybe in the American Center when we open back up for public viewing. And I would definitely be happy to do a class when I'm not pregnant, so I can show you all the different poses you can kind of place your body into. If you like yoga and you want to try it for the first time, search online. Once we're able to go to classes again, find a studio. Yoga is a great sport, and you should try it. Add it to your list of things you do on a weekly or daily basis. Bye for now. Thank you. Thank you.